Yo, what is going on, guys? XpertFusion here, and today I'm going to be counting down the top 3 most underrated Call of Duty games of all time. So I think I'm going to do this same thing, but for overrated CODs later on, and we're only doing the top 3 because there's only been like, what, 15 or something Call of Duty games? Like, you know, it's not easy to count down that many underrated or overrated ones when I don't think there's really even that many that could be considered underrated or overrated, but obviously, this is just my opinion. This is my opinion on whether or not the game is underrated. Of course, what does that mean? What does underrated mean? It means simply that I believe the game is a lot better than what the majority of the people who played it think. That's kind of, you know, how you are able to figure that out. And, well, how do I determine what people think of these games? Simply looking at Metacritic scores, looking at IMDb ratings, looking at just the Twitter community and YouTube's community and what people say about it, just my own personal experiences talking to people, whether it be in real life or online. I kind of know which Call of Duties people like and don't like. It's pretty easy to tell for someone who's really active in the community, even outside the community. And again, I did my research, I looked up on websites and such to see what these games were actually rated by the popular, opinion. Now, I'm not taking into account like just specific people, so like critic opinions and such. Those aren't nearly as important to me as audience because this is the popular opinion that I care about. And underrated just means the higher it is on this list is the higher gap there is between my enjoyment of the specific COD game compared to the popular opinions enjoyment of the game. So this does not mean that the top one on this ranking is better than the number 2 spot or the number 3 spot. No, it just means that's how underrated I think it is compared to the other games on this ranking. So coming to number 3 spots, I've got Call of Duty Black Ops 3. So Black Ops 3, you might be like, what? Are you kidding me? People love Black Ops 3. Everyone talks about how good this game is. One of the best multiplayer experiences of the current gen, or I guess you can say last gen at this point, of, the Xbox One, PS4 generation of COD games. People love the zombies, right? Well, not when you look at the entirety of the player base. Now, obviously, in the hardcore community for Call of Duty, like the hardcore fan base who are continuously playing every game, they're always on Twitter or YouTube talking about Call of Duty, they tend to like Black Ops 3 a lot. Black Ops 3 is widely praised by these hardcore players, but when you look at the majority, because the majority is not us, right? Us on Twitter, we probably make up less than like 5% of the actual player base who plays Call of Duty. When you look at the actual big majority of people, Black Ops 3 was not that favored by a lot of people. People do not like this game when you look at the casual community, people who just kind of play like COD every now and then, they don't really, get too into it. I mean, just ask some of your friends maybe who don't really play COD as much, do they like BO3? Most of them don't. And there's a lot of reasons why. First of all, the game is really complicated for a casual player. The campaign is all over the place. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the campaign, but for someone who's a casual, it's even worse because it's really confusing. It's not something you can just understand by just playing it. You kind of have to dip your toes into some YouTube stuff to kind of really understand what's going on, so people don't like that right off the bat. Multiplayer, you got exosuits, that's something already people don't like, specialists, stuff that kind of just make it too complicated for casual players who just want to hop in and kill people. They don't feel like going through all this, complicated stuff. And zombies is, I mean, yes, that's when zombies got to the point where it was not simple to do things within the map without knowing how to do certain Easter egg stuff, you know what I mean? And it got too complicated for way too many people. But people like me absolutely love that complicated nature of the multiplayer and zombies within this game. I love zombies in BO3. I love multiplayer in BO3. You guys know this, it's my second favorite COD of all time. I will praise this game till the day I die. You look on IMDb, it's got a 6.9 out of 10 for the user ratings. Now, there's only 5,000 reviews on it, but that's not that good in comparison to the other COD games. It's not a terrible score by any means, but it's not that great. But then you go on to Metacritic. Now, Metacritic, the critics actually give it an 81 out of 100, which is a pretty damn good score. But the user score is a 4.9 out of 10. That is treacherous. That is a really low rating. And you go on to other review sites. I mean, I've been reading through them. I mean, this guy right here straight up called the game feces. He called it feces. He says, have played COD since World at War and can honestly say I am done. The last 2 games this franchise has put out been absolute garbage. Everyone jumping, flying, sliding around, spraying their neon glitter covered weapons. This is the type of people who don't want to play games like this, the futuristic, boost jumping games, and they just kind of just give it a shitty rating just from that. Obviously, I disagree with those people. I think they're kind of just rating the game based on some minor things like the setting, to each their own, of course, but I think this game is incredible. You guys know this. I don't want to go into deep detail. If you guys want to see my deep ratings on this game, just go check out my review videos. I've done critical reviews on every single Call of Duty game, and I've also done tons of rankings on them, so definitely go check those out. The campaign's the only thing in this game that I can agree deserves some hate. Not as much hate as it gets, but definitely some hate. But multiplayer and zombies, I'd confidently say the zombies in Black Ops 3 is still the best zombies we've had to date. The multiplayer, I think, is one of the best we've had to date, and I think in terms of just replayability, this game had it all. It really did. So Black Ops 3 comes in the number 3 spot. Coming in number 2 spot, I've got Call of Duty Black Ops 4. So the more recent you go in a Call of Duty, like the more recent it is, the more hate it's probably going to have, because retrospect is a huge thing, nostalgia is a huge thing. As time goes on, people kind of appreciate the games a little bit more. So even games like, I don't know, Ghosts, Advanced Warfare, games that were really hated on back then, they're starting to get more appreciation today. So I expect games like BO4 and BO3 to get more appreciation over time. But since BO4 is so recent, it still has a lot of that lasting hate that a lot of people had for it. And personally, I think it's very, very underrated. Not the most underrated one. We'll get to that next, obviously. I still think it's pretty damn overrated. In terms of IMDb, it is 5.6 out of 10, which is one of the worst rated COD games of all time. But just to be, clear on this, IMDb is very story focused. It's it's all mainly about movies and shows. That's mainly what is on IMDb. So people who, rate things in IMDb usually rate them based on the story of the games rather than, the gameplay. That's what I've noticed, at least looking at the reviews. So obviously the fact that BO4 didn't have a campaign definitely does take a lot of those story people and make them just not really care for this game and probably give it a 1 out of 10 regardless. So that drags down the score a little bit. But on Metacritic, the user score is a 4.0 out of 10, which is really low. But the actual critic reviews gave it some pretty solid ratings. It's got an 83, which is pretty good. Like, critics actually said BO4 was much better than what most people act like in, the audience and such. But the thing about BO4 is that even the hardcore community wasn't a big fan of this game, and there's a couple of reasons. Mainly, there was, the whole microtransaction dilemma, specialists returning, the futuristic era, the long time to kill. But some of these things I liked. For example, the long time to kill I did appreciate. I thought the manual healing was a cool feature. I liked the game more as time went on, as they fixed some of the issues, like microtransactions. They eventually fixed those after the life cycle, and it weren't a problem anymore, and I had no issue with it. Zombies, I know a lot of people have their issues with zombies, but this is the most content we've ever had for zombies, and I do think there's some maps here that are really solid, specifically 9, Ancient Evil, and of course Alpha Omega, and some of the other ones aren't even that bad. It's just some of the mechanics that kind of drag the mode down a little bit. And then you go into Blackout. Blackout was pretty fun, I'll be honest. I just wish it was free to play. It would definitely get more players if it was free to play, just like Warzone, but in its own right, it was actually really enjoyable. I think there are certain things about it that's better than Warzone, but as a whole, I think Warzone is a better battle royale. But that doesn't mean Blackout isn't great in its own separate ways. But the main portion of the game, which I would say is the multiplayer, had a lot of fun stuff to it. I thought the maps were pretty solid, and I just thought it was an overall good Call of Duty game. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely not my least favorite. It's probably somewhere in the middle. I think I put it my number 5 spot when I was ranking all the CODs, which is relatively high, but it's not that high, compared to some of the other ones. But I just think this game is much better than what people give it credit for. I think the people who rate it low just can't get past the fact that the game has a relatively bigger skill gap because of the longer time to kill and because of the manual healing, and they don't want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with trying to, maneuver that. They don't like specialists. They don't kind of realize that the microtransactions aren't a big deal anymore. They used to be. They kind of just let that taint their memory on the game. Or they just don't like games that are in the future at all. And this game obviously has a more futuristic setting, but it does not have boost jumping. So if you didn't like boost jumping from Black Ops 3, you could play BO4 and it just didn't have that issue. So yeah, I think this game is incredibly underrated. I think people bash on it way too much. Yeah, it would have been nice to have a campaign, but honestly, Blackout was probably more fun than a campaign ever would have been, to be honest, because what campaign have we gotten? A Black Ops 3.0 type thing, another Black Ops 3 type campaign? I don't know. I wouldn't be too crazy about that, honestly. Blackout was much more enjoyable, and it gave the game more longevity compared to if it didn't have a battle royale. But that is not number one. Let's get into the number one spot. So the most underrated Call of Duty of all time easily is Infinite Warfare. I will always defend this game till the day I die because it is so much better than what people make it out to be, and I really do strongly believe that the majority of people who hate on this game are people who didn't give it a chance. I think most of the people who hate on it didn't even buy the game, or they bought it, played it like 3 times, and then never played it again. They didn't even touch the campaign. They barely touched the zombies. I really don't think the people who hate this game actually tried it that much, because most people who actually spent some time on it, finished the campaign, played through some of the zombie maps, did some of the multiplayer, maybe at least Prestige once, most of them liked it a lot. I mean, not a lot. Most of them at least thought it was a decent Call of Duty experience. So why do people hate this game? Well, first of all, there was a big hate bandwagon going into it before the game even released. I mean, look at the reveal trailer. 3+ million dislikes just from the reveal trailer. I mean, first of all, I'm pretty sure most of those were bots, but second of all, that is just insane. And people just weren't looking forward to this because it was another futuristic Call of Duty title, which they've just decided not to do those again, except for Black Ops 4, because that's kind of futuristic, but not really. You know, it's semi-futuristic, but it's not crazy futuristic. But people weren't excited to see boost jumping again. They weren't excited to see Call of Duty going into space. They just didn't like the setting, which I really don't understand how players have that mentality where they're like, oh, this is in a setting that doesn't look interesting to me. I don't want to play the game. To me, the setting doesn't really matter that much. Setting is only important when it comes to diversity, right? I don't want every COD to be the same thing. I don't want a Modern Warfare game every year. I don't want a World War II COD every year. I want them to have diversity between the eras and the locations that they go to. I don't care what it is. It can be whatever it wants to be, as long as it's different than the games that came before it. Now, yes, were they going crazy with the futuristic stuff? We had like 3 or 4 futuristic CODs in a row. I agree. But just because you're in the future doesn't mean it's going to be the same setting or era, because the space is completely different than what we saw before. Black Ops 3 didn't do shit with the space. That was like more sci-fi, like mine stuff. Advanced Warfare didn't have anything in the space. That was all on Earth. It was just futuristic Earth. And, you know, obviously Ghost had like 1 mission in space, but this was completely different than anything we've seen before. And I was really looking forward to seeing different planets and missions on planets and stuff, and the maps being all different planets. I thought it sounded so cool, and then people were just bashing it like no tomorrow. They didn't give the game a goddamn chance. That's where most of the hate for this game came from. And most of the people who call it trash, I personally know some people who call it trash and they didn't even play it. It makes no sense to me. They just think it's trash because everyone else says it is, because that's just the bandwagon, and it's insane. But like I said, most people will tell you the campaign in this game is actually really incredible. They'll tell you the zombies is actually really incredible. Spaceland is one of the best maps of all time, and I think the other maps honestly still hold up, except for Beast from Beyond, but the other ones are pretty solid. And the multiplayer, okay, it's not the best multiplayer ever, but if you like Black Ops 3, you have no reason not to like Infinite Warfare. I can understand someone who doesn't like Black Ops 3's multiplayer also not liking Infinite Warfare's multiplayer. I can understand that because they're very similar multiplayers. But I know so many people who love Black Ops 3's multiplayer to death. They're like fanboys of it, but they hate Infinite Warfare's multiplayer. And I don't get that. They're so similar. The only differences are the fact that the specialists work a little bit differently, and it's got better hit detection, really. I can't really think of many differences between them. And the microtransaction system is much better in Infinite Warfare as well. I think the only thing about Black Ops 3 I liked better in the multiplayer aspects were some of the maps I think were just a little bit more interesting, and I felt like it had more personality to its multiplayer. It was a little more colorful, a little bit more just lively. I thought the weapon balance was just a little bit better as well, and I like the streaks better in Black Ops 3. But Infinite Warfare has a lot of other positives to it that outweigh Black Ops 3. It's just, if you don't like boost jumping, which 2 of the CODs in this list have boost jumping in it, which that's a thing. A lot of people hate on games just for boost jumping. Personally, I like the boost jumping. Okay, I don't want them every year. Every now and then, though, I think they're fine. I think they increase the skill gap, which definitely isn't good for, you know, shitty players, but for players like me, I was able to learn them. and get good with them, and I have a lot of fun on Infinite Warfare. And I don't even want to talk about the campaign because I've talked about it to death. It's one of the best experiences you'll ever get in a COD game. Beautiful soundtrack. This game has one of the best soundtracks of all time. The zombies, again, you go through so many different eras in zombies. You got the 80s map, you got the 70s map, the 90s map, the 50s map, the future map, all these awesome settings and eras, and so much diversity in this game, so many different places, so many different planets that take place in different campaign missions. The multiplayer maps have all different planets that you go to. There's just so much to this game, and it's really unfortunate that so many people hate on it without even really giving it a proper chance. This is my 4th favorite Call of Duty game of all time. That's where I rated it on my list. I think Black Ops 3 is a better game, but I think that's a little bit lower on my list just because people hate Infinite Warfare a lot more than Black Ops 3. Let's be real here. So that's why it's number 1, because my enjoyment of this game is so much greater than what I feel like the general consensus is for this game. It's getting a little bit more praise today as time goes on. Again, I knew this was going to happen, obviously, because nostalgia is a huge thing. You know, people think in retrospect and they realize, you know what, Infinite Warfare really wasn't that bad. A lot of people are coming through and saying that now, especially after Black Ops 4. So it's just the way it is. But I think this game deserved a lot more credit. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your top 3 underrated CODs in the comment section below, but give me some reasons why you think they're underrated, because I don't want to see people come in here being like, number 1 spot, Black Ops 2. Like, I've seen that before. Like, I've seen people talk about what do you think the most underrated COD is, and people say like Black Ops 2 or Modern Warfare 2. Do you know what underrated means? You can't put CODs in your number 1 spot for that and call them underrated when they're already probably one of the highest rated CODs of all time, unless you're trying to convince me that you think it's so much better than already being the best. But I don't know, you say whatever you want. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.